Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Africa Regulatory Conference 2025, focused on advancing the clinical research ecosystem in Africa, inclusive, innovative, and impact-driven approaches. We're really excited to have everybody here today, and we would like to thank, on behalf of IUF-PMA, the program committee for all their support. If you go to our website, and that link will be shared in the chat, you will be able to find all the speaker and panelists' biographies today, as well as that of the program committee. So our first panel today is focused on patient and community engagement. And to help us moderate today, we are excited to have Carrie Cullinan from Health Policy Watch join us as moderator for the webinar series. Carrie is Deputy Editor at Health Policy Watch, an independent global health news outlet dedicated to daily reporting on analysis on health policy, governance, and systems, and Carrie is based in South Africa. So before we begin, we do have some housekeeping rules we would like to go through real quickly with everybody. And then we do also have a little bit of an icebreaker survey, so do be prepared for that. So just to remind everybody, the conference is in English today. However, interpretation in French is available. You will see the icon at the bottom of your screen for interpretation if you do need to make that switch. Everyone is muted. If you have questions, because we will have Q&A opportunities, we do ask that you put your question in the Q&A box. That can be found below as well. And please like or vote on any questions that you think are well-founded. And we do encourage you to join the full webinar series. Again, today is the first one. We do have some others. Please join us on our website and register. And all sessions are recorded, and these speaker videos and presentations will be made available on the conference website. So to start, though, we are very excited to have a lot of you with us, and we are really excited to find out where you are joining us from today. So we do have a short poll, a Zoom poll that we would like today to do with you, and that should be coming up on the screen shortly. And we do ask that you please let us know the country that you are joining us from. So if you can take a minute or two to do that, we would really appreciate it. So again, we have a great opportunity with us to have a wide and varied panelists. So let's go ahead and move on to the first session. Carrie, I'll hand it over to you.
Thanks, Janet, and good afternoon from a rather chilly Cape Town. It's rather wonderful to see all of you here and to see the interest in this subject, which is patient and community engagement in clinical trials. It's a crucial component of trials, but it can be tricky if it's not handled well. So I'm really delighted with our lineup of speakers who will tell us exactly how it should be handled. What we have is we have two panels. We'll kick off immediately with one of them. We'll then follow with a keynote address, and then we'll have a short break, and then we'll have panel 2. So let's get straight into how the panels will be run is that we'll have questions, and everybody will answer the same question. So the first question for the panel for panel 1 is, why is it important to engage patients and communities in clinical trials? And our first speaker is probably the very best person that we could kick off on this. Luke Kanyangareng is a nurse from Kenya, and he recently became the first Kenyan to receive an International Human Rights and Nursing Award for his outstanding commitment to advancing the rights and dignity of neglected patients. So Luke, why is it important for patients and communities to be engaged in clinical research?
Thank you very much for this opportunity. I will share shortly about why I think it is important to engage the community and patients in clinical trials. Since the community are the ones who produce the clients, well, that is where the burden of the problem, the disease that is being studied about. And everything here is about getting solutions and a better solutions, of course, of the healthcare provision. So I think it's important to involve the community because they are the main stakeholders in this issue of clinical trial, because this is where we get the patients who are supposed to be put on the clinical trial. And without their proper understanding that this is about getting a solution to their problem, it will not be good, and it won't give us good results. So I think involving them gives us good results. It will build their trust. They will own everything. They will know that it is all about them. It's all about their health. It's all about getting a better solution for their health problem. So when they get to understand this, then getting patients to be recruited and be maintained in the process of clinical trial will be good. And even their cooperation during the time of follow-ups and maybe ongoing recruitment, it will be easier to do the job. And again, also, our communities are very rich in cultures, and if we don't engage them to understand better about their cultures and who are the gatekeepers, who are the main decision makers in the families, in the life setup, then it won't give good results for the clinical trials. Also bearing in mind that most of these communities where the problem is are from very vulnerable setup. So even the kind of lifestyle they live also is a challenge, because some of the people where we do most of these clinical trials come from a nomadic kind of life, like the way where the place where I come from. The kind of life they live is a nomadic kind of life, whereby people move from one place to another with their livestock in search of grass and water. Sometimes insecurity breaks in and they have to move from one place to another to look for a more secure place. So getting to understand their life setup is also very important, because when you are doing recruitment, you should know where you are getting the patient, where is this patient coming from, where do you expect to find this patient at which season of the year. And also we have to understand the dynamics of their cultures, so that we don't breach their cultures when we are recruiting them, and when we are asking for solutions, and maybe also boost the social support of the whole process. If we don't get social support of the whole process from the local leadership, from the recruitment and maintenance of the patients in the trial. So we have to get support from all these players. We have to get support from the political wing. We have to get support from the local leaders. We have to get support from the household heads, because most of the households are headed by men, and most of the men have polygamous families, more than one wife in a family. So you will get made when a decision of several households is supposed to be made. Maybe you will get a sole decision maker who is the head of the family, and in this case you may find it is the husband. So we have to know the dynamics of the communities where we are dealing, where we are carrying on the clinical trials. I think I've spoken about building trust. I've spoken about enhancing the research. Also,
Thank you
sorry.
so much, Luke. We're going to have a second round of questions too. So I think you have been excellent at sketching the complexity of the situation. I'm now going to ask Teriro Makadzenge to continue. She is the CEO of the Africa Clinical Research Network. So I think she's extremely well placed to also take forward the discussion. Thank you, Teriro.
Thank you, Kerry, and thank you for the organizers for inviting us to be a part of this. I couldn't agree more with what Luke has just mentioned. So community engagement in clinical trials is not optional, it's fundamental. And perhaps I'll point out three key things. So one, clinical trials provide the best quality care. We know this from places that have much more access to clinical trials than we have in Africa. And one of our goals as ACRN is to increase that access to trials. Centers that do clinical trials follow guidelines, follow policies, provide access to novel therapies, and operate in a very regulated framework. So we believe that every patient has the right to be offered the opportunity to participate in a clinical trial. And conversely, every trial has the right to be seen by every patient, so that patients are aware of those opportunities. So trials shouldn't be hidden. They should be globally accessible. They should be transparent, and they should be designed with patients and the communities at heart. As I mentioned, quality of care improves in the setting of clinical trials where there's close monitoring, improved diagnostics, access to innovations, and quality is a key component, but it's also built on trust. So engaging communities right from the start of a study, whether it's the design element, the execution element, the partnership element, having community voices in the design, and communities, as Luke pointed out, in our context, is not just the patient, but it could be the partners, the family group, the broader community group being key in making those decisions. So building that trust is absolutely critical. And then lastly, just to say, Africa has been not a key player in clinical trials. We currently only participate in 3% of global trials, and yet we're 18% of the global population. Our goal as ACRN is to catalyze. We certainly won't do it on our own, catalyze bringing Africa from that 3% to at least 15% over the next decade. All of that needs building that trust, particularly in communities that haven't had access, have been marginalized, may have in certain circumstances not been fully engaged or exploited in the conduct of trials. So there is skepticism. But if we can try and start to build that confidence, build that understanding, that trials not only advance science, improve quality of care, give access, that will be crucial for strengthening Africa's participation in clinical trials.
Thank you so much, Terry. I think that's a brilliant kind of overview of why it's so important. So important is your organization that we have somebody else from here, from the Africa Clinical Research Network, which is Norris Better, who is the Clinical Trial and Community Engagement Coordinator. So Norris, maybe you can give us more detail of how you have been working with communities. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Kerry. I couldn't agree more with Dr. McCarthy, again, the previous speaker, that patient and communities engagement is critical. It's a best practice. Communities need time to understand, to process, as well as to accept clinical research. So rather than rushed engagement, we need to give them time to ask questions, to question the research agenda, to hold us accountable within their communities. And on the other hand, as well, as research organizations, it is critical for us to have time to know our communities. As Luke was rightfully saying, we need to know the dynamics of our communities. We need to take time to incorporate the dynamics of our communities in our community engagement strategies. So as at ACRN, we follow a good participatory practice aligned community engagement strategy. It emphasizes the issue of trust, the issue of respect and mutual understanding and engagement at every stage of the life cycle of clinical trials. We do stakeholder mapping, we do community mapping, we talk to our participants and find out what matters to them. We've adopted socio-behavioral research as a community engagement strategy for us to get to know our communities better. It is one way that we elicit attitudes issues of social influence that Luke was talking about, who makes the decisions, who may support my participation in a clinical trial or who will not. Through social behavioral research, we also elicit issues of barriers and facilitators to participation in clinical research or to understanding clinical research. And this helps us to know our communities better. We do take the results of our socio-behavioral researches and use it to develop our community engagement strategies. It then becomes evidence-based community engagement because we are engaging communities on their terms through what they would have told us that this is how best we would want to be engaged. It is important for us to engage communities and patients because it drives recruitment and retention. Engaged communities are more likely to participate. They are more likely to stay within the studies because they understand what clinical research is about. So at ACRN, we follow an evidence-based community engagement strategy, which assists us to recruit and to retain our participants.
Thank you so much, Forrest. I think everyone is emphasizing trust, and trust is hard to be earned these days. So, any tips on that at this stage of play with health is fantastic. Our last speaker in this section is Wayla Jacinta Mukulu, who's from the Science for Africa Foundation. She's the program manager for public engagement with science. So over to you, Wayla.
Thank you very much, Kerry, for this opportunity to discuss this important topic. I think for me, I would want to say that engaging patients and communities is respect in action. Because many a times in research, we talk about respecting the study participants, their values, and what they stand for. But if we do not engage them meaningfully, then we risk violating their rights as participants and not respecting them. And like my colleagues have said, when people feel they are respected, whether they are patients or community or in research participants, if you engage them, especially at the initial stages of your research, that is right from the research questions to the design, then they feel that they are part and parcel of the work and they are likely to cooperate and offer the support that we need. And given that, especially in clinical trials are not a cheap affair, it's usually labor intensive, a lot of resources go into it. And it is only best that we ensure that we actually secure commitment from the community and the patients to work with us the journey. And by so doing, we are able to come up with research outcomes that actually represents the needs of those people. Because at the end of the day, even when we do research, it's not just for publications, it's to ensure that the evidence that we generate is actually used to inform decisions. And that takes me to the next point, whereby it is important to engage patients and communities because, like I've said, research is expensive. And if we are producing outputs that are not being used, then it contributes to research waste. And it is important to ensure that the research that we do is actually relevant. We are asking the right questions. We are answering the questions that are pertinent to the communities where we are working with and also to ensure that participants feel that there is value for their time, that you're not wasting their time and not implementing the outcomes of our research simply because probably we did not secure the commitment from the beginning, and especially in clinical trials, if you have a lot of people who are lost to follow up, then that impacts the outcome at the end of the day. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Wayla. I think I love that respect in action. I have the greatest respect as a reporter. I've reported on many clinical trials, and it is extraordinary that people are prepared to pitch up week after week and take experimental products for the good of developing science. So respect to all of you for the work that you are doing. The second question is, how are you or your organizations helping patients and communities to understand the benefits of clinical research over time, and if there are any key lessons that you could share. So I think let's start with you again, Luke, and I'm sorry that I had to butt in while you were speaking the first time. Please, what are the best lessons that you can share, and how are you trying to encourage patients to understand the importance of clinical research? Luke, can you hear?
Okay. You are talking. You are asking me the question,
Yes.
Luke?
Yes. Sorry.
Sorry.
Did you hear the question?
Come up again.
Okay. The question is, how are you or your organization helping patients and communities to understand the importance of clinical research, and whether you have any best lessons to share with us?
Thank you very much. I think the best practice, from my experience, we had a clinical trial which was carried out in Kacheliba from the year 2018 to the year 2021. And the way we did is that we first of all mapped the area where the research is supposed to be done, and that was the Kacheliba area. Then we mapped the stakeholders who are supposed to be involved. We first of all had a training with the healthcare workers, the nurses, the clinical officers, the doctors. And then another meeting again was held with the leadership, the local leaders, the political leaders, the administrative leaders, to let them know that we are about to carry out a research, and it is all about getting a solution, a better solution for the treatment for the neglected diseases. So the outcome was so good because the turn-up was good, because the community were able to be told about the research in their local language, whereby everybody was able to understand what we were talking about. And the problem itself was relevant because it was about the real disease that is affecting them at the ground. So everybody was brought on board before the clinical trial started. And so it brought a very good outcome, because at the time of initiating the research, the community people were very positive. In fact, we had the highest recruitment compared to other places where the research was being carried out. Our site was the one which had the highest numbers, because the community themselves understood it well, and they took it, they owned it. It was very relevant with the kind of problem they have around. The local leadership were aware, so there was support from all the stakeholders. The administrative leaders were supportive, the political leaders were supportive, the healthcare workers were very supportive, and also well trained. So everybody was at home with the research at the time it was being initiated, because of the prior preparation and prior strategies that were put in place.
Thank you,
I
Luke.
hope I've answered the question.
Yes, thanks. Thanks a lot. I think that's really crucial. Proper, if you prepare properly, then you retain people in the trials. Tarira, over to you. What lessons have you learned, and how are you engaging?
Yeah, thanks, Kerry. I think Luke's example is a perfect example. The way that we think about community engagement is very broadly. Our community, yes, is the patient population, but we're part of a much broader community as Africans in individual countries, as individuals in healthcare systems and healthcare provision. So when we think about our community broadly, we think about the impacts and the benefits of clinical trials and research. We see it as a vehicle for economic growth. So many countries globally really try to position themselves to be competitive for clinical clinical trials, because it does drive science, innovation, economic growth in a country. Clinical trials and research also strengthen healthcare systems by pushing the standard of care to better quality, better innovation. They also drive global competitiveness. If we look at China, 20, 30 years ago, they weren't doing that many clinical trials. Now they're doing lots of clinical trials, but they're also developing innovative therapies, not only for their own country, but for the world globally. And they also empower patients. The more patients understand their health, their diseases, the science of their diseases, the better equipped they are not only to participate in a specific clinical trial, but to understand healthcare more broadly. So when we think about community engagement, I'll also speak to some of our sort of higher level community engagement. Norris will speak to also patient level, site level engagement. But we think about our governments are our communities, right? So how do we engage our ministries of health, our regulators, our healthcare systems? So not only the doctors that we work with or the nurses that we work with in a trial, but the healthcare system more broadly, the hospital, the administrators, the system really understanding what are trials and what is the benefits of trials. And then crucially at the community level and at the patient level. So I'll stop there, but just really wanted to point out that, we see community as a broad sense of the community, and as a continent, as Africa, we're one community. We have 54 different countries, but together we're smaller than China or India. So the more we think of ourselves as one continent, the stronger we will be at attracting trials to the continent. So the whole continent is our community. But coming down to our country levels, our community and patient levels are important. So all of those stakeholders are part of our communities and part of our community engagement.
Thank you, Terry. Really important to think of even governments as part of community. Norris, over to you. Maybe you can take it down a little bit further to communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Kerry. I will take it down to the patient level as well as the site level. At HCRN, our community engagement strategies to help patients and communities understand the benefits of clinical research over time have been evolving. Earlier on, we were just focused on building awareness, merely informing communities and patients about the clinical trial at hand, about what is clinical research and why is it important. However, we have now started engaging a deeper form of engagement whereby we have adopted participatory community meetings approach, where patients and communities are able to discuss the benefits of clinical research. They are able to air their concerns, they're able to ask questions, they're able to give us feedback on whether they understand the engagement process that is there as well. Previously, we would use only printed materials like posters, flyers, addressing myths and misconceptions on brochures and frequently asked questions. However, we have embraced technology as well. From printed materials, we are now engaging wider using WhatsApp groups, using website postings, Facebook postings, and Twitter as well, digitalizing our community engagement so that we reach a wider spectrum of our patients and communities to help them understand the benefits of clinical trials. We have also, as I have alluded earlier on, adopted socio-behavioral research. Without repeating it, it has assisted us in asking communities what they understand and how much they understand about the benefits of clinical research and how best we can engage them. This has assisted us a lot in our community engagement to make communities understand the benefits. In addition, we have adopted a phased approach to community engagement. rather than a once-off engagement where we just have one community meeting, the next minute we are recruiting participants, we are referring them for screening to the clinic. We adopted a phased approach where from mobilization, we have people expressing their interest in coming for the clinical trial. We line list them and we invite them for a next meeting where the benefits of clinical trials or of participation will be discussed at length, as well as whatever trial at hand. From that line listed community meeting, people will further express their interest from there. We'll go on to one-on-one meetings where we will also try and check and get feedback from them on whether they understand about clinical research, whether they understand about the benefits. So this phased approach culminates into a continuous type of engagement where we will continue engaging our participant until they are really confident that they can participate in clinical trials. They understand the benefits, they understand their roles within the clinical trials. So this is how we have been engaging our patients at site level, at ACRN, giving them time to process. So in terms of key lessons, through our socio-behavioral research, we have learned that evidence-based community engagement is beneficial. It works. You engage people at their own terms. You engage people in their own understanding. You know their culture. You know the norms within their communities after using socio-behavioral research to support clinical trials. And in addition to that, I would say we've also learned that time and timing is important. Time in terms of engaging our participants in a timely manner so that they have time to process what we are talking about, what are the requirements for the clinical trial. And in terms of timing, when and how we are engaging, whether it's our patients and communities or our community advisory boards, early engagement works. It allows us to correct our strategies. It also allows us to adjust where it is necessary for us to adjust and move forward with our clinical research. I will stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, Norris. I think it's quite sobering, the intense requirements to get it right, and there are no shortcuts, but it's really impressive the work that you're doing.